Good afternoon, Facebook. My name is Chuck Fagan, and this is a special presentation of the Better Savannah Facebook page. We are joining you this Saturday afternoon to bring you the final series in our County Commission District interviews for District 7 and District 5. So joining me today will be candidate for District 5 Chatham County Commission, Ms. Tanya Milton, and also for District 7, Mrs. Alzina Wallace-McCoy. We're going to go through a list of questions here and try to get as many in as we can over the next 50 minutes to an hour or so that we can get these candidates back to dealing with the crisis at hand, both for themselves and their families and their communities. So with that, I want to introduce each of these candidates and give them a few minutes to speak and introduce themselves. First, in the 5th District, I want to invite Ms. Tanya Milton to introduce herself, why she's running for the 5th District, and what her platform is. Tanya, please go ahead.
Very good. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Tanya Milton. I'm your candidate for Chatham County 5th District Commissioner. I grew up in Chatham County in the 5th District. I attended Chatham County Public Schools. I have 2 adult daughters and 2 grandchildren. I've been married to Walter Thomas for over 20 years. I have worked in the newspaper industry most of my adult life, and I currently now serve as Vice President and Advertising Director of the Savannah Tribune, which is the oldest continuous publishing African-American newspaper in the country. This job has allowed me to be involved in several social and civic organizations as well as nonprofits, and it also allows me to be in touch with my community. We are basically a weekly newspaper. We publish every Wednesday, and I've got over 45,000 readers. And my platform, I want to say in 2010, Mayor Otis Johnson and Council appointed me to serve on the Metropolitan Planning Commission. And for the last 10 years, I've been serving, and I still serve. I served there from 2016 to 2018 as chairman. And what that has allowed me to do is to become a lot more familiar with Chatham County and city government, and then deals with land uses, zoning hearings, taxes, and budgeting. But most important, it gives me the opportunity to communicate with the citizens of the 5th District. And I think that's important. As I've interacted with the residents of the 5th District, the issues vary from neighborhood to neighborhood. So I'm in favor of expansion of accessible transportation for all municipalities and working together for affordable housing, public safety and resilience, and of course, workforce development. I live in the 5th District and I know what we need to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for that introduction. I want to offer the same to you, Mrs. Alzina Wallace-McCoy, running for the 7th County Commission District in West Chatham County. Please, introduce yourself to our audience, both that's watching live on Facebook right now and that will watch the replay of this interview many times over. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Savannah. Thank you very much, Chuck, for inviting me this afternoon to give the opportunity to introduce myself to your platform and your viewing audience on Facebook Live. My name is Alzina Wallace-McCoy. I'm running for the 7th District Chatham County Commissioner seat. I am a resident. I have been a resident of the 7th District for the last 13 years. I am a native Savannian, born and raised in Savannah, Georgia, educated in Savannah, Georgia. I have spent most of my professional career working on Wall Street in New York City. I moved back to Savannah, Georgia in 2007 with my husband and my 2 children. I'm a mother of 3 children. Both of my children were graduated from high school in the Chatham County, Savannah, Georgia. We have been involved in our community through our homeowners association since we moved back here in Savannah. I was always interested in what was going on in any community that I lived in. And what basically sparked my interest about, the 7th District is I noticed the tremendous growth that was going on all around us. And we didn't really get that much information from our leadership at the time. What we did not hear about basically on the local news or read about in the newspaper, we didn't know about all of the infrastructure issues that was out here when we first moved out. And the more we got involved and start asking questions, we noticed that, Chatham County, this part of Chatham County had, drainage problems and drainage issues, and, we did have some problem with policing, when we were all under one umbrella for the police department. But, the underlying issue that was really of most concern with those out in the 7th district is basically all of the wetlands, the marshlands, when it rained, and how we would have so much flooding out here. And, from that, we turned to, all of the SPLOST money that was allocated to, making these culverts in these various communities, putting down these drainage pipes. But that still was not addressing the issue, because we noticed that, take the Quaco Canal, for example, out here in the 7th district, that canal, when it's a heavy rain, that rain would just overflow in people's yards. And even in my yard, in my community, if we have a bad rain, my yard is saturated. So, these are the things that basically that I feel that we're not being given the right information, even if it's coming from the Chatham County Engineering Department. They need to let us know basically, what type of culverts they're putting out here, so that it will be adequate enough to handle the drainage issue. So, that's a big pet peeve for me right now, with, just keeping the people informed, letting them know what's going on. I can back up and tell you a little bit about myself. I have a master's degree. I went to the City University of New York. I got, my master's degree came when I came back to Savannah. I worked on Wall Street for basically almost 20 years. I worked in the public sector. I worked in the private sector. So basically, I worked down at, the Metropolitan Planning Commission. I was very involved with the finances for the Planning Commission. I'm now a finance director for a local nonprofit here in Savannah. So basically, I'm really in tune with what's going on in the community, keeping the people aware, being a voice for those that cannot speak for themselves, and always getting information to the people so that they will know what's going on in their community. So that's why, for me, it's something that I hold dear, wanting to be a part of the 7th district and what's going on out here, so that I can better inform the people, have town hall meetings, go to the community meetings, go to the neighborhoods association, and let's hear from them to see some of the things that they have, the issues that they have in Chatham County and unincorporated, Chatham County. So I'm doing my part to do what I can to help the people.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you for that introduction. And again, thank you both for being willing to sit down here. Tanya, I want to start with you. Your district has the city of Savannah in the 5th district. Last year, the recent city elections were very historic, as voters essentially returned no incumbents, with the exception of the 5th district city incumbent, who had no opposition. What's your takeaway from this dramatic outcome, and what do you think that means for county and local delegation races this year?
Well, my takeaway is that there are no guarantees. There are no guarantees in life, especially in government. And I think the residents reviewed the candidates, they vetted the new candidates, and I think they made a decision. They made a decision whether the incumbent stayed or whether the new person was elected. Now, as far as the 5th district, there were challenges in that district, but I don't think anybody was at that time prepared to step up. Things may change in the future. But for me right now, I think people made the decision to come out and vote their conviction.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate your answer to that question. Alzina, a question to you. Almost every council candidate campaigned on bringing about term limits to the city government, to the aldermen, as well as the mayor, just like the chairman is. Will you support this type of policy for term limits for district commissioners at the county commission this next term?
Well, Chuck, to be honest with you, term limits are good, because anytime you do a job, and I can only speak from my experience, and I'm gonna go back to my professional experience. My first real professional job was in banking, and each year, each banking employee had to take a 2-week vacation to step away from what they were doing, so that basically you would get a feel, or sort of like a mini audit could be done of your job duties and responsibilities. So there are like certain times when term limits are needed, especially when you have the same person doing the same job and you don't really see that much of a change going about in your community. So a part of me would say, yes, I'm for term limits, especially in the local election, because you always need a fresh pair of eyes to move the people and the communities forward.
Thank you. Thank you for that answer. Tanya, I want to offer you the same question.
Yeah, I would say that there's wisdom in having some experience on the commission. Someone has to steer the ship in the right direction. And residents really don't want to have people in office who don't work to get things accomplished and who are not responsive. So therefore, that's the reason why we saw the change that we saw in the city election. And I think we're going to see some of that in the county election as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me follow up with a question to you, Tanya. Do you think that 3 terms is enough time for experience to be transitioning to the next generation? Yeah,
a couple of people we've been talking, and we think that 3 terms, for one thing, it takes you a full term to get the job down pat. Once you get the job down pat and you're working in the community, then yes, another term is definitely due you. But then it really, if you're doing a wonderful job, then yes, I think 3 terms is total because it's a 4-year term. So that's 12 years. I don't think you need to continue to, if you're not doing the work, you don't need to continue to be there. And people they want representation for their taxation. So I say yes.
Thank you. Thank you. No, thank you for that. Alzina, the next question I'm going to bring to you. Your district does not include a lot of the city of Savannah, but the city of Savannah is the largest municipality in the county. What are you prepared to do to develop a closer relationship with the city of Savannah, and what does that mean for all of the county residents?
Well, Chuck, for one, even though the district that I'm representing basically is made up of parts of Garden City, Pooler, and unincorporated Chatham County on the southwest side. The unincorporated portion of Chatham County on the southwest side, we do feel a lot of times that we're not involved in what's going on in the city of Savannah. Like we're not involved in the mayoral election, and that's understandable. But we still basically pay our taxes into Chatham County, and we need to respect and honor the relationship we have with the city of Savannah. The same thing with the citizens of Pooler and Garden City, because Savannah is the county seat for Chatham County. Everything that basically Savannah does affects these unincorporated portions of the county in one way or the other. So we need to be out here talking to them more, realizing what we can do to them from the from the county perspective to make their lives and quality of life a whole lot better. So we need to have more town hall meetings with them. We need to come out here and speak to them. We need to be in their communities, find out what it is that you need that the county can do for you. We need to do this. We need to basically know what's on their agenda, what's the driving force behind some of their concerns. And unless we meet with them, talk to them, listen to them, we won't know that.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that answer. Tanya, I want to pose the same question for you. The substantial portion of the 5th district is the broader section of Westside Savannah. What do you think needs to happen to bridge that gap between the county and the city?
Some say consolidate.
That's a fair question. Is that the answer? Is consolidation of city and county government the answer?
Some say consolidate and the others say no. But we need to develop trust and develop a working relationship together. There are so many more benefits in working together than it is in working independently. And we can build a more cohesiveness if we would just work together and collaborate. I think we can do more for the city and the county with collaboration opposed to the independency.
Great, great. Thank you for that answer. Thank you for that answer. I want to move and talk a little bit about public safety. This question will be for both of you. Both of your districts contain substantial portions of the unincorporated Chatham County area. The average officer ratio per thousand, the Chatham County Police Department has approximately 110 officers to service a population of 92,000 people, and this is in the unincorporated area. That's a ratio of 1.3 officers per thousand. According to national data, that ratio puts us on par with very rural areas like Montana or Wyoming in terms of the ratio per thousand residents, when in fact, I think we'd all agree that unincorporated Chatham County is much more of a suburban setting than a rural setting. So in order to get to the average of 1.5 or greater, we would need to hire about 25 to 28 officers to get that. So do you support getting that ratio up for the unincorporated portion of Chatham County? And if so, how are you going to pay for the officers and the training and all the things that come along with that? Alzina, why don't you take that question first?
Well, how would we pay for the hiring of at least 25 officers in unincorporated?
Well, do you agree? I guess the first question is, do you agree that that we need to hire those officers to get that ratio in line with what the averages are? Or do you, if you do agree with that, then how would you, propose to pay for the cost of 25 more officers?
Well, yes, I agree with that because public safety is very important. And how we would pay for that, basically, I would want to find out, if we need the 25 officers, did we budget it to 25 officers? And if the 25 officers were already budgeted in the county's fiscal budget, then now those dollars have already been allocated for. Because when you're making a budget, you're allocating your resources, but you also have to stagnate when you're planning on filling those roles and positions. So I'm quite sure that basically, if we need to have at least 25 more officers to service the unincorporated portions of Chatham County, the county has already budgeted for how they're going to spend the resources or the money for those people to be hired on. The question is not whether or not the county has already budgeted for them. I'm quite sure they have. The question is basically, how do we go about hiring these individuals that's needed? I know we're advertising for them. So basically, are we training? Are we working with, some of the vocational schools, or, are we working with the military when basically people leave their service? Are they willing to come on board and basically be a police officer in unincorporated Chatham County? So there are multiple ways that we can basically look at this. It's not just about hiring them and having a ratio, but basically what do we have in place in order to even, really attract the candidates for these positions? Because I'm quite sure the county is already allocated for how they're going to pay for them.
I think that's a very good point. Thank you for that answer. Tanya, I want to bring this same question to you, about the ratio of officers in the unincorporated area of Chatham County. And if you do believe that we need to hire more to bring that ratio down, where are you going to look to pay for that? I'm not personally sure whether or not the county has budgeted for that complete number of officers. I just know that currently there's 110 officers serving. So I'd be interested to hear your answer to this question.
Well, honestly, I think that the data may be a little skewed. But coming off this pandemic, it would be great if the revenue was there. Of course, public safety is one of my platforms as well. And this is why it is important moving forward to plan for a more resilient future in transportation, in housing, in a diverse economy, and certainly in public safety. I spoke with Captain Dan Flood probably a month or so ago, and he felt pretty well positioned the way the county is and with the officers that they have. They feel as though they are a little more secure now. The the residents feel a little more secure. The biggest problem that they've had is people leaving guns in their vehicles. And that has been something that they have really been trying to crack down on. You can see the road signs now, do not leave your guns in your vehicles. But from what his conversation was with me, that he thinks that they are doing a pretty good job with what they have. Now, perhaps there may be a deficit based on those numbers that you just rolled out. But whether or not the county is in a position to afford that now is going to have some discussion. We're coming in dire straits now. We're going to be in dire straits for a while. I mean, we've gotten 1 million people unemployed in the state of Georgia. We've got the state of Georgia folks facing a $4 billion shortfall. I'm just concerned on how all of us are going to try to stay afloat. And this is not short term. This is going to be a while. And
I agree. Yes, I agree. Thank you for those answers. We're going to talk about revenues, and we're going to talk about revenues and some things outside of taxation. One note is that the Chatham County's budget is made up 80% of property taxes, as opposed to the city of Savannah, which is only about 40% made up of property taxation. So, I do believe that the county is in a stronger position to storm than the city perhaps, but it doesn't mean that there's going to be revenue shortfalls, especially if we need to make some investments. Alzina, I want to ask you the next question. In the last decade, upwards of 8 inmates have died at the Chatham County Jail. We understand there are some constitutional and legal issues with dealing with the sheriff as the Chatham County Commission. What do you think needs to change at the jail so that inmates can be safe while they are being held, either serving local sentences or waiting for prosecution?
Well, Chuck, for a question like that, when I don't really have enough information and data to speak to what has happened at the Chatham County Jail during the course of the last decade, I only hear a glimpse of what I read through local media. But that's something for the sheriff department, the sheriff, and the county commissioners, especially the county chair, to sit down and come up with strategic plans to really lay out everything that you just list on what's going on there and come up with a plan, because it's not something that I would feel comfortable speaking on right now when I don't really have that much information.
Tanya, do you care to weigh in on that?
Yeah, I can. Honestly, I think you should consider what the individual may have died from, how they died. I mean, there are cases where you have inmates with underlying health issues. Some are mentally challenged. So I think all of those things need to be considered before I can make a statement on what we could do to improve that. I really don't think that is a very alarming number, but it all needs to be considered because no one should have to die while they're incarcerated. But of course, like I said, you have underlying health issues with inmates. It just depends on the situation, on the circumstance.
Fair enough. Thank you. Thank you for that question. I think a broader point of Better Savannah has been trying to make for the last year and a half is that, crime is a symptom of an underlying problem of poverty. And so our next question is to you both, and I'm going to stick here and start with you, Tanya. According to the last census, Chatham County has had 17.3% poverty, whereas the nationwide poverty rate is 13.6%. It's even higher, as you know, in the city of Savannah. Given the effects of the coronavirus and the precarious nature of public sector budgeting, what can Chatham County do over the next 2 to 4 years to make sure that our poverty rate does not substantially increase in 2021 and 2022?
We create and generate revenue. We need to diverse the way we create and generate revenue. We need a workforce development that is prepared to change the way we're doing things, because we're not going to go back to how things used to be. I just don't foresee that. So, and going forward, we've got to clear up on workforce development, because we've got autonomous vehicles that are coming into play now. We've got to lay out infrastructure for those vehicles. We've got to get people, I guess, back to work some kind of way, feeling really good about themselves and good about coming back, getting things back to where it was or where it can be. This is going to be, it's going to be a tragic situation. I mean, I was watching the news yesterday at people who have already applied for unemployment who are not receiving it yet. There have been over 1 million forms processed, and then there's still people that are still applying. To get people back to work is going to be important, but I don't know how. I mean, with industry, it's going to be tough. Nobody feels that they want to move to Savannah. I don't know whether anybody is in the mood of moving at all. You know, this is a worldwide pandemic, and it's affecting everybody. So there is no real answer to how we could get Chatham County back to work.
Thank you. Alzina, I want to ask you the same question. You know, again, Chatham County has a 17.3% poverty rate, whereas the nationwide average for counties is 13.6%. Given the effects of Chatham County, you know, the coronavirus on budgets, what do you think needs to happen in order for the poverty rate in Chatham County not to increase over the next 2 to 4 years and to hopefully decrease?
Well, Chuck, you know, we have to remember that those numbers that you are espousing were numbers that were there before the pandemic. And in addition to that, we've always had a problem when it came down to understanding where the poverty really begins with. And poverty starts with, just to delve a little bit into learning the early education learning model. So that's where it has to start from. That would mean the Chatham County City Council and the Board of Education continuing to work collaboratively to basically move people out of poverty. Because yes, it's going to be a little different coming out of the pandemic, and it's not going to be different here just in Chatham County, but across the state of Georgia, across the Southeast, all across this country, we're going to be facing with the same thing. But we first have to keep in mind that we have to address poverty at the very early education level. And that's how you have to eradicate it. You have to teach our young children. And we have to work together as a community to do that in order for those numbers to change. And we have to keep in mind, coming into this pandemic, we're going to have to do more, even more so. We'll have to rely on basically, even at the national level, at the federal level, all of us working together to help us move out of this pandemic, keeping in mind that basically we had a problem before the pandemic. So what do we do to move all of us forward? Helping our young people, educating our young people, educating our parents. That's how you move out of poverty.
Thank you. I appreciate the answer. And I want to stick with you here for the next question. Besides education, which I do think that, is probably the great equalizer. The other equalizer is jobs and more importantly, wages. The county commission makes several, and again, this is to you first, Alzina. The county commission makes several appointments. One of the most important might be the board of directors of the Savannah Economic Development Authority. CEDA puts together deals to attract new businesses to our county, and those deals are very generous, including Chatham County, City of Savannah, and the school board property tax abatements. The loss of the Chatham County property tax revenue is done in exchange for the promises of new job creation. But CEDA never requires an independent audit of the promised number of jobs nor the salaries. Would you be willing to amend the county ordinance that establishes the interagency powers between Chatham County and CEDA to require an independent annual audit of all CEDA contracts in exchange for jobs and salaries created?
That's a broad question, Chuck. And basically, but I'm gonna try to take it and break it up a little bit. One, anytime an organization is receiving that much of county funds for anything, they need to be independently audited. And the two, if we are appointing people to this CEDA board, why are we appointing appointing certain people that's locking other people out, and why do we keep doing it? We have to pay attention to what our elected officials, our local elected officials, what's their motive for putting certain people on this board, and then giving them the right to basically say, you know what, we're going to give you this funds, but basically you can audit it the way you want, but we're not going to basically be involved that much, engaging ourselves in the audit. So we have to stop allowing our seasoned local politicians to sit there and keep appointing the same people to these boards, and then come back, we realize the ramifications of these appointments, and say why we are allowing, or what CETA is doing. We are allowing them to do it because we're not giving them any concessions. We're not telling you, no, you cannot keep basically accepting taxpayer dollars, and then basically you bringing in these organizations, and these organizations, these companies are not here to benefit the people in our community. The poverty level is tied to that. Jobs are tied to that. But if we don't have the right people sitting at the table with CETA to see this, then how are we supposed to know? So yes, I'm all for basically anything that's going to expose, make more transparent what is basically happening with CETA and what they really are bringing into the community that's affecting or not affecting or disinfecting our people, our citizens.
Thank you, and I appreciate that answer. Tanya, I wanted to bring the same question to you. Do you want me to repeat the question, or are you good to go?
I think I'm good with that. I agree with Alzina a bit with when we're talking about naming the same people or what inspires these people who are making the appointments. Something has to inspire them. And when we are talking about inspiring people to come to Savannah, bring jobs, and we're giving them tax credits for doing that, we certainly should be a steward of that. We need to monitor what's going on. I don't know what the cost is in doing and having that done. Is that an extremely large cost to CETA to track down and to it's keeping the people honest. The audit is definitely a way to keep the people to be honest, and they need to be. When we attract people to come to town, come to Savannah and bring jobs, I don't know that they don't have a mechanism in place that determines that what you were talking about is whether they were being audited. I'm not sure that they're following these companies as they come in and we give them a tax credit, and how long do they track what they say they're going to do and how long that is in place. So I believe that they should be audited. I think that there should be some kind of tracking mechanism whenever we bring these people in with jobs to bring jobs to Savannah, and we're offering them a tax credit and giving them something in exchange for the jobs. So, how do we continue on if we don't keep some kind of record? I think that they should have something in place.
Sure. Thank you, and I appreciate that answer. I want to talk about another big economic generator here in Chatham County. The Port of Savannah, controlled by the Georgia Ports Authority, has said that they plan on doubling the size and capacity of the Georgia Ports Authority over the next 8 years. They had actually said 10 years 2 years ago, so that's where I'm getting that number from. But despite the success of the port, there's no direct payments to Chatham County, nor any of the municipalities. Given the impacts of the port on our community with congestions, the quality of the roads in and around the port, and pollution, do you feel that Chatham County should start negotiating with Georgia Ports Authority for direct payments via a port container tax? Tanya, I'll start with you.
Absolutely. I think they should already be making payments. I mean, this is nothing new. They are creating traffic. They've got road problems. Of course, Georgia Ports, they provide great paying jobs and support the support that comes from the surrounding entities that include the truck drivers, the rail workers. But I would look into whether there was an opportunity to set up some kind of payment in lieu of taxes. We also need to discuss the impact of the port restrictions that are being put in place now as a result of the pandemic. So all that will go into play. But yes, I think that they certainly should be paying to play.
Thank you for that answer. Alzina, I want to give the same question to you. The port's a big economic generator. They plan to double in size. Do you think it's time to start negotiating for permanent recurring revenue directly to the county and the municipalities?
Well, that's a couple of things with that. Yes, I agree, but I also realize that that's something that should be the Chatham County working with our state legislatures to find out why we find ourselves in a situation where they don't. And then basically having our state legislatures pressure or have a conversation with our governor. Because if we're sitting here, we are sitting on, one of the largest ports in the country, and the county is not receiving anything from it. This is not a new conversation. This is something that should have been an ongoing conversation between Chatham County, our state legislations, and our state governors to find out why the county is not really benefiting from Georgia Ports Authority being here. Yes, they provide great jobs, but at the same time, especially now with us going into this pandemic, and once those ports begin to open up even more and commerce begin to flow from China, we need to sit down with our legislatures, our state senators, our state representatives, and have the conversation. What can we do to make sure that basically you are pressuring legislation or pressuring the governor to say, why isn't Chatham County receiving some type of concession, some type of revenue from the ports being here? So,
great, thank you. I'll follow a few follow-up questions along the same lines here. Chatham County has not employed a full-time lobbyist in almost 8 years because the current chairman of the commission has said that he would do it himself in terms of lobbying on behalf of Chatham County because of his vast experience. Would you support hiring a lobbyist for Chatham County for some of these issues with the state government?
You're asking me first? Okay, yes, I would. And I'll tell you why. Because if we have someone that's dedicated to doing that, to fulfilling that role, then basically that would mean that each commissioner could basically have conversation, put pressure on our commissioner chair, to basically say, what are our lobbyists doing? That we hired them to do this, to basically speak to our legislation, to speak to the governor, to say that basically we need to open up more dialogue to find out how could we go about, getting revenues for the county. So for me, yes, and I don't believe that that's something that the commissioner can do, because the commissioner is basically engaged in so many other things in the county, and sometimes things do fall by the, really fall by the wayside. So yes, we need to hire lobbyists. We do, because that conversation needs to be ongoing, and we probably would have been a whole lot further along than we are right now.
I agree. Thank you. We appreciate that answer. I want to bring the same question to you, but I want to ask it in a slightly different way, Tanya. We've had, I think we've interviewed 10 candidates for county commission districts at this point. We've seen a vast array of answers to what the leadership role of the chairman of the county commission is and should be and should have been for the last 8 to 10 weeks during this crisis. Do you think it was a wise move to not have a lobbyist for the last 6 or 8 years as a Chatham County government? And do you think that the chairman's leadership has been appropriate during this crisis?
I think that he has made, during this crisis, I think that he has made some good decisions. But now, whether or not to have a lobbyist, are you talking about having a full-time lobbyist? The session is not, the legislature is not in session full-time. So are we talking about a full-time lobbyist? Are we talking, Chatham County has obviously budgeted for one in the past, but was that I guess it was totally left out of the budget for the future? As
I understand it, there has not been a lobbyist at all, part-time, full-time, regardless, for at least 6 years. I think if you were to look at the top 10 largest counties in Georgia, including our own, I think you would find more than not employ a lobbying firm on a year-round basis. because of the amount of monies that are at the state and federal level. But I could be wrong on that. I think that's a fair point to debate. But again, we've had no lobbying activity, part-time or full-time, for 6 years.
And then it would be good if we could have probably a consortium of lobbyists, if that all of the municipalities would pay into, so that we would have somebody that's working for all of us and not just a few of us. So that would be my answer as to whether or not how do we select that person? That person needs to serve all of the other municipalities, including that are within Chatham County. It'd be great if we had a consortium of them, but unfortunately, and then it'd be great if we had a budget for it. We got to look at all these budget line items now to decide what we can and what we cannot do. So, but it definitely a lobbyist for the issues that we have in Georgia. We need to have somebody talking for us. Now, again, Mr. Scott may have felt that he had already had those relationships. And if he felt that way and everybody approved of it, obviously the commissioners approved of it because they didn't make it an issue. So I guess that would be the concerns of the new commissions coming in.
Thank you. I appreciate your answer to that question. I got another question. I'm going to start with you, Tanya. Since 1990, many counties and cities have implemented impact fees on new construction. For background, in 2019, Chatham County issued building permits in the amount of, I want to say 2,000 building permits. If you figured that the average project was 3,000 square feet, that's a total, potential revenue at $2.75 impact fee per square foot of $16.5 million of revenue for capital projects that the county is seemingly leaving on the table. Would you support impact fees on new construction in the unincorporated Chatham County area? There's a lot of that area in your district.
That's, I guess that would need to be taken on a case-by-case basis as well. If it's going to be a development that's going to be affordable, something that will add to the community opposed to being an income-producing development for a developer, it would have to be taken on a case-by-case basis. I would say no, that we have the impact fees onto a developer that's building affordable housing. But if he's building a warehouse or whatever, then that has a different connotation. So we need to. I think that would be done based on a case-by-case basis. We can blanket it, and you're gonna leave. You're gonna somehow leave people out.
Alzina, I want to bring the same question to you. Just for some more context, I think that for every 1,000 homes you build, that's a police station, that's a fire station. There are capital costs that are necessary to fund the rapid development and growth. For some more background, Effingham County and Bryan County, our immediate neighbors, both have a more aggressive impact fee schedule than we do here in Chatham County and the city of Savannah. So, again, knowing we're going to need some revenue, are you going to be supportive of impact fees on new construction going forward?
I agree with Tanya to the point, case-by-case basis, and I'll tell you why. Because the Chatham County has experienced so much growth within the last 20 years. And we want the businesses to come and the organizations to come. Yes, we give them a lot of tax credits, but we also have to be able to write ordinances that basically say, and if you are a type of organization, you will have that impact fee, okay? Because we need to, one, fund the 25 officers that the nation say we need for the unincorporated Chatham County. So yes, there's always a way of writing our laws and our ordinances where basically it will benefit the businesses as well as the people in the community. And this is one of those times where basically, because we don't have anything currently in place, it should at least be on a case-by-case basis so that we can make other concessions going down the road.
Thank you. Thank you for that answer, Alzina McCoy. Let's talk a little bit more about the budget, Tanya. You know, if you won't be supportive of impact fees, and let's all agree that the Port of Savannah giving money to the county and the municipalities is probably a medium-term project. It's not going to happen in the next year or two, probably, but hopefully in the next 4 to 5 years, we can make some real progress on that. Knowing that we're going to have to really focus on the budget shortfalls, and I'm really thinking about fiscal year 2022. I think we'll be fine this year, and I think we'll probably be fine next year, but I'm really worried about the tax digest value over the next 18 to 20 months because of our heavy reliance on tourism and logistics, which are industries that are slowing down because of this crisis. If we can't find new revenues, are you going to raise the millage rate for Chatham County and M&O taxpayers? And if you won't commit to raising taxes, if you commit to not raising taxes, what services would you consider non-essential that you're going to cut? Sorry, Tanya. Sorry, go ahead.
I think we need to take it line by line. There are services, and I've got the plans here, the plans for 2021, the budget, but we got to take it. We got to take it line for line. You got this binder right here that's the full budget that's we line by line. We're going to have to go line by line and just decide, is this essential or is it not? Is this essential? And it's not just to a few people. We got to involve everybody in this because it needs to. We're going to, one of your questions was about borrowing from SPLOST. And I don't know that that's something that we can do, but of course it's going to have to be a conversation. The state has the shortfall, so that falls down to the county. So definitely we're going to be hurting, and how we get creative and come out of this, we're going to take a lot of prayer and innovation. And a lot of collaboration. We got to work together on it, but that's going to be a line by line item. And it's not going to be what's important to you here, what's important to you there, because nobody's going to want to get cut. Nobody's going to want to get cut. But something's, I mean, we're planning to build another juvenile facility, courthouse. All of these things are already, they're building a bunker out at the airport for the hurricane. These are big capital projects that are on the books now that SPLOST money has been allocated for. So
let me ask you a follow-up here, Tanya. You know, again, are you in favor of halting or canceling some of these capital projects in order to not commit to the maintenance of them? We're going to talk about SPLOST specifically in our last section here in a minute, but I really want to talk about this budget because again, I think the choices are going to be relatively simple. Either you're going to have to find revenues from new sources, or you're going to raise the millage rate, or you're going to cut services. So, you know, which path of those three seems to be best for you?
I think it may be a mixture. I mean, we may cut. We're going to have to get creative and find new ways of generating revenue, and we may have to increase the millage rate. I mean, this is something that we have never seen before, and so there's no blueprint as to how we're going to work our way out of it. It's going to be a long haul, and we're going to have to look at everything independently. I mean, Chatham County.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So sorry. Go ahead.
I was just saying that Chatham County just completed the blueprint study where they did a survey. Talking to the people of Chatham County, that blueprint, some of the items that are there that they want to see move forward are not going to happen. And now the developments that I'm thinking that we're going to have big buildings empty in some places. So I passed by Overthorpe Mall. There's not a car in the parking lot. So it's going to be interesting to see how we come out of this. Again, We've not been through this before. There's no blueprint on how we're going to work our way out of it. And I don't think that there's no one person or no 10 people that's going to be able to provide us with answers.
I couldn't agree more. And again, thank you for those answers. Alzina, I want to bring you in on this question before we move to our final topic of SPLOST. You know, again, I see it as a relatively simple proposition over the next 4 years. We're either going to have to seek as a county new revenue sources. We're going to raise the property millage rate in the county for the M&O budget and perhaps also the SSD district budget, or we're going to have to cut services. Which of those three will you look to first, or will you commit to not looking at taxes or services cuts? Go ahead.
You know, Chuck, we are in a situation right now over the course of the next 4 years where literally we are all in this together. And we're going to have to do what we can to make sure that we continue the services that we currently have, but recognizing that basically, yes, we might have to raise the millage rate, yes, we might have to raise the taxes, and yes, we may have to cut some services. And it's not just something that's going to happen here in Chatham County, it's going to be across the country. So we have to be pragmatic and our perspective on how we're going to handle these issues, and even how we pose the questions on these platforms, you know, because basically we're all in this together. We currently have a budget that's in place. It has already been approved. We don't know what the fiscal year 21 budget is going to look like. That's something that they're working on now. And I'm quite sure even as they work on that budget, they're considering the tweaks that's going to have to be done, because basically we don't know how this is all going to pan out until we get, you know, better data on the other side of this. We know what the unemployment situation is like. We know how basically families are being affected by that, where basically some families even consider, will we get another stimulus check? So we cannot just say, you know, it's all of one and none of the other. It's going to have to be us putting all of these options on the table, working with the financial department, with the county, seeing what they have to say, seeing what they can bring to the commissioners to say, okay, these are our suggestions for you to consider, and then us moving forward. We have to be practical and pragmatic in this, because we're talking about not just a budget for Chatham County, but budgets for the state of Georgia that basically the county receive funds from them, budget from the federal money from the federal government that we receive. So basically we have to basically pause, get the data that we need in order to make sure the right decisions are made going forward, because all of our lives are going to be affected by this. So, you know, that's my response to that.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. I do appreciate that. Our last topic is going to be about SPLOST. SPLOST stands for the Special Purpose Local Option Sales Tax. It's a county tax that is divvied amongst the municipalities in the county for county and municipal capital projects. It is the single largest pot of sitting monies. There are some capital projects in SPLOST that have been sitting, waiting for completion for over 2 decades. So with that information, I want to move into a few questions about this before we close. SPLOST ballot language is controlled by the county. Would you support including on SPLOST ballots all major projects listed individually for an up or down ballot? Again, some of these questions may require state law changes, which again, we've discussed hiring a lobbyist to be able to advocate for these potential changes. But Alzina, let me start with you here. Would you support including, you know, the individual projects as an up or down vote in the future?
I don't know, because basically that would be a long ballot. Because basically, like you said, if you go to the county's website, you go to the Chatham County Department of Engineering, they will list all of the SPLOST projects, you know, like you said, for the last 20 years, and that's a long list. And some of them are completed, most of them are completed, and some of them they still have, you know, they still have revenues that's sitting on their balance sheet for. So, you know, SPLOST is sort of like the topic where basically we need it. A lot of the citizens do not understand how the money can only be used for certain things. So if we want to give them more, you know, I guess more information on basically what the SPLOST projects will be, as opposed to listing every project, I think that would be better, because that would just be a lot of information on a ballot that you're asking a voter to basically go through and, you know, vote on one way or the other. And, you know, I don't think that would be you know, very beneficial to, you know, to the voter to do that.
Good. Thank you for that answer. Tanya, I want to ask the same question to you, and I'm going to ask a follow-up, so you can take some time to answer both here. But, you know, in the late 90s, we built the aquatic center. I think it was for $4.5 million. You'll have to excuse the dog in the background here. I think we built it for $4.5 million, but it costs us something like $1.2 million per year to maintain. Would you support including on SPLOST ballot language an estimate of ongoing maintenance and operating costs so the voters can see the potential impact of the M&O budget?
Yes, yes, that's a yes. That's a yes. That's definitely a yes.
Is that that's for me now, right? Say that again?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead. Yes, ma'am. It's for you.
Okay, so just on the other side of Alzina's answer, the flip coin of that is, you know, we bundle a lot of items together for one SPLOST budget period. And sometimes it's one item that can make that vote go up or down. So bundling those items sometimes can affect the vote. I don't say that we need to put every individual project as something to vote for, but we need to categorize so that people will understand more about what they're voting for with the SPLOST. Now, the other side of that question was you were asking about the budget. Now, I want to know what the cost is, what it costs, what is the whole cost involved. You know, what makes everyone give more thought to the development and forces government to have a more complete transparency. They should also be able to give the cost of what the operational cost is going to be down the road. You know, we build these developments and then they have operational costs that we didn't include when we were doing the budget. So all of those things need to be considered when we're setting up SPLOST.
Thank you. A final question on SPLOST, Tanya, and I'll bring this to you in a moment, Alzina. Would you support a legislative change at the state level that would allow cities and counties to borrow some amount, maybe 10, 20% of previously banked SPLOST funds when a statewide state of emergency is declared, like the one we've been in for the last 2 months?
Yeah, I mean, we're coming out of one now. I don't know that we ever came back from Michael. The county had money that was supposed to be paid from Michael when we had the hurricane. That didn't happen. It's a tough question. I say that honestly, I think we're always going to be in a state of emergency. Coming out of this pandemic, we're going right into hurricane season, and we really don't know what we're going to face with that. So we're going to have to consider discussion with the residents in preparation for what is to come. Because as I'm saying, we're coming out of this pandemic and not really out of it. We're going through it, and we're going right into what's supposed to be the worst hurricane season that has been predicted by our weather services. So will we ever come out of this state of emergency? And whether you borrow money, do you borrow money from SPLOST? If you borrow money from SPLOST, at what rate is that? You know, all of those things need to be considered. I would say I would support an opportunity for that. I would support it based on the fact that right now we have got to get creative about generating other revenue. And if folks don't want their taxes increased and businesses don't want to pay more into the county, then we got to find a way to keep this thing running. We got to find a way to keep this engine running.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that. Alzina, any final thoughts on SPLOST? Would you support an ability at the state level law change to borrow some bank funds on SPLOST during a statewide emergency like the one that we are in? And any final thoughts about SPLOST here?
Well, Chuck, my first thought when you use the word borrow is basically what's attached to that is paying it back. You know, and if we're in a state of emergency, you know, what do we do at the county level, or what will the state require to do at the county level to set aside, you know, I guess any type of, you know, reserve type money to say that basically, we will use this to pay back a SPLOST, payment if we needed one. So, that's my first thought to that. Now, I know with the SPLOST, we have a lot of dollars sitting in the SPLOST account. And if the state, because I noticed that, almost every 4 years, some type of SPLOST is on the ballot. And the voters keep, saying yes to it. The county keeps collecting the money from it. And then the money ends up sitting on the county's balance sheet. Now, basically, are we going to work with our state legislatures to basically say, okay, we have all these funds coming in, especially now that we're finding ourselves in a state of emergency? Will the governor, the state legislators or governor allow us to not even necessarily borrow, but use some of those funds in order to make up for the shortfall that's going to happen in the county? So, so there's a lot that goes into basically when we're talking about, writing, ordinances and legislation from the state level, because it's not something we can just answer and say, this is what we're going to do. We have to look into it to see exactly what will happen, what will occur, what will we benefit from it. Will we be better off from, making that type of payment or borrowing that from our SPLOST fund? How is that going to affect us down the road? We know that we're going to be like this for the next few years, but for the next couple of years. But on the other side of that, basically, when the economy opens up again, so so we have to really be able to make the right type of decision as it affects the county and the quality of life for the citizens here in Chatham County. So to answer your question, it's for me, I would have to look at it and see, because I believe in making pragmatic decisions. Pragmatic.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you both for joining us. In a moment, I'm going to give you both a chance to wrap up and give your conclusions. Please use that opportunity to tell people how to find you, get in touch with you for your campaign. We'll remind everybody watching that this year's primary is scheduled for June 9th. Most ballots that have been requested by mail will go out by mail here in the next 2 weeks. There was some confusion in the 7th district on some of the balloting, and a lot of new ballots will be reprinted. Alzina, I'll give you a few moments to acknowledge and talk any more about that if you know more about that than I do. But just a reminder to everybody that's watching, Better Savannah is the Chatham County area's leading independent expenditure state and local government committee focused on progressive policy outcomes here at the local level. Last year in the city races, we made endorsements in 7 races, and 6 of those candidates went on to win their elections. We're excited about this year's county elections. We realize this is a campaign season like no other, given the pandemic that we are going through and will keep going through together, whether we're on a governor's order of lockdown or not. So with that, I want to allow you first, Alzina, here to give some conclusion thoughts and tell people how to get in touch with you and about the 7th district race that you're in right now.
Thank you, Chuck. Again, I would like to thank Better Savannah for the opportunity this morning to speak on, or this afternoon to speak on their platform for a more progressive Chatham County. I can be reached on Facebook at Alzina Wallace-McCoy. I'm going to give you my personal cell phone number if anyone would like to get in touch with me. That number is 912-313-8276. I'm a candidate for the 7th District Chatham County Commissioner seat. I will go to the commissioner office, keeping you in mind, coming with pragmatic decisions from a pragmatic perspective, letting you know that I'm there to work for you. I'm not going to make off-the-cuff decisions. I'm going to be fair. I'm going to make equitable decisions. I'm going to make transparent decisions. I will always keep you informed of what's going on. And if I don't know, I'm going to let you know that I don't know, but I will find out and I will get back to you. So I'm asking you on June 9th, when you go to the polls, to vote for Alzina Wallace-McCoy, 7th District Chatham County Commissioner. Yes, there was a problem with the ballots that went out a couple of weeks ago. They're printing out new ballots. They had to print it from the state level. District 7 was basically listed off of the ballot. It was brought to their attention, so now they're mailing out new ones. So please watch your mailbox for those. And when they come in, please remember to vote for Alzina Wallace-McCoy, 7th District Chatham County Commissioner. And I will always work for you, and I will fight for you. Even if I have to do it by myself, but I'm going to do all that I can to work and be a very effective commissioner for the 7th District of Chatham County. So thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you again for joining us. Tanya, if you would give us your closing thoughts and again, how people get in touch with you and, again, your race here in the 5th District on.
Thank you, Chuck. I want to thank you for allowing me this opportunity to speak to my constituents. Thank you for the platform. I am Tanya Milton, and I'm running for the 5th District County Commissioner. I am in favor of expansion of accessible transportation for all municipalities, working together for affordable housing, public safety and resilience, and of course, workforce development. I can be reached at TanyaForThe5th@gmail.com. That's TanyaForThe5th@gmail.com. I'm also on Facebook at Tanya Milton for the 5th District. And you can also reach me at area code 912-658-2813. That's 912-658-2813. I'm interested in hearing what your concerns are. So please send me an email, give me a phone call, or shoot me a text. I am here to work for you. I want you to remember on June 9th to go to the polls and vote Tanya Milton for your 5th District County Commissioner. I will be working for you. I will be in touch with you, accessible to you. I am working with integrity, transparency, and also inclusion. So remember, vote on June 9th, Tanya Milton, 5th District County Commissioner. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And again, thank you both to Alzina Wallace-McCoy running for the 7th District County Commission out in West Chatham, and to Tanya Milton running in the 5th District County Commission in West Side, Savannah, and the parts of the unincorporated Chatham County area. So appreciate you both for joining. Thank you for answering these tough questions. We hope that this forum was a little bit more productive with the less amount of candidates than some of the others we've seen so far this election season. So again, we appreciate you for joining us, and I'm going to end our broadcast here in just a second with, again, a hearty thanks to you for running for office. Please stay safe on the campaign trail, and best of luck to both of you, okay?
Thank you very much.